Hey folks, thank you very much for tuning in. I am joined today by Taylor from Creaturecaster, who you should all know by now if you have anything to do with Trench Crusade or this channel. And we're going to have a chat about something pretty important today. So Taylor, do you want to drop the news?
Hey, thanks for the opportunity here, Aiden. I appreciate it. I need to announce that the Great Hunger is going to be delayed. Unfortunately, this project is much larger than we initially anticipated. It's grown into an entity of its own, and there's no possible way that we're going to meet the deadlines that we need to meet for pre-marketing if we're going to be launching on June 10th.
Yeah.
So it's unfortunate. There's it's bittersweet that we're announcing this delay. But there are great reasons for it, and I think in the end, this is a blessing in disguise that we're going to be delaying, because it means that we're going to have more time to work on sculpts. We're going to have more time to work on stretch goals and additional parts for these models, and produce a more cohesive faction that kind of fits our vision. So yeah, that's basically it. We're going to be delaying until October, which I know is a long time. But the reason that we're delaying so long is partially due to the fact that we need the extra time for playtesting of the rules and for designing the models. But there is a lot that goes into this kind of project. It's not just a matter of me coming up with an idea, writing some rules out, writing some profiles, and sending it to market.
Yeah.
As you guys know, this is an official Trench Crusade product, so we're working hand in hand with Factory Fortress to do this, and that means that there's a lot of obstacles we have to overcome. Part of that, big part of that actually has to do with playtesting. Which I mean is a big part of this, because we live in an age where a lot of companies, and I'll use video games as an example, will put out a game and it's like half finished, right? And then they'll put up, day 3 or 4, they'll drop an errata, right? Or not errata, but like an update that, fixes all the problems that they should have fixed before they put the model to market or put the game to market. And I mean, my biggest concern here is that we're putting out a product that needs a day 1 errata. I respect you guys too much to do that. And I personally feel that this product just needs a little more playtesting.
We've literally seen companies in the board game war game space drop something, and then 2 days later you have to download something to be able to play with it. You want to put out the product that people want and enjoy, not have to update 2 seconds later.
Absolutely. I mean, it's I'm speaking from experience here, because I've been doing this for a while, and I'll say years ago I put out my own tabletop skirmish game called Gang Fight, and I was very new to how this worked. And so, I mean, I finished the rules, finished the layout, everything was good to go. We sent it off the printers. While that was happening, of course, people were still playing, the playtesters were still playing the game, etc. And a very serious bunch of things came up from the playtesters that needed to be changed. It was just one of those things. It was a combination of things that, needed to be addressed. And so day 1, I had to drop an errata for the book. People got the book, and the first day there was an errata for them to update the rules. And it wasn't a little errata. It was a fairly large errata. It was like 12 pages, I think, of errata. And I felt like garbage doing that, because, these people invested money in this game, and, they deserved to have a book that was completely up to date. And unfortunately, it's just the way things were. But the reason that happened was because we rushed to print. And I would hate to see that to happen with the Great Hunger.
Yeah. There's there's pretty high quality bars on both sides of this thing. Obviously, Creaturecaster with the sculpts, legitimately some of the best in the world, and Factory Fortress with what they're trying to do with Trench Crusade is maintain. I think they've set a pretty solid bar, and they want to maintain that going forward. They don't want to. I think it would be a real shame to do sculpts of the quality that Creaturecaster are going to do and not have everything else in place and match that standard.
That's it. I mean, Factory Fortress has been great. We've got access to Thomas and Mike and Jamie and James. The whole team are really passionate about what we're doing for the Great Hunger as well. And all of us just want to see us put out the best product. And this isn't like I didn't know this months ago or weeks ago, right? Like this is a very new development, and I wanted to make sure that as soon as I found out, I think you were the second person to find out actually, outside of the team that we were going to be delaying this. And the first thing I did was schedule this up so people could hear why we're delaying the product, right? Because I think it's important to address this and not just in a social media post that just says, "Hey, we're delaying." I really want to be clear because I've been working on this personally since November with the Trench Crusade team. We started sculpting fairly quickly. We started sculpting, I think, in February once we had our concepts to go. And I mean, sculpting takes time. It's not something that just happens overnight. You have to think like on average, a 28, 32 millimeter model usually takes about a week of work in terms of sculpting to get out. And we're putting out, we have I know that I've been saying 23, but it's actually going to be much higher than that by the time we're done. And some of these large models like the Madagot Hag, I think that she's been sculpted now, like she's still in process of being sculpted. And I've seen works in progress, and I guess it's a crazy model. But it's it's taken a month and a half of solid work to sculpt. It's not, there's a lot that goes into these things, and we're putting out a product that, like, I mean, if you look at our models, when you take our 32 millimeter models and you blow them up to be like 75 millimeter, like this guy Jim Rice, amazing painter, he'll take our models and he'll take the tiny model and he'll blow it up so it's like a foot tall, right? And he'll paint it, right? And the detail still holds. And we want to make sure that we're doing that with the same thing with our Trench Crusade models, right? So if people want to use them as display pieces, they can print them up. They can blow them up. Like the Madagot Hag, from what I've seen so far, I actually want to blow it up to be like a foot tall and paint it, and have it as a display piece. If my wife will let me. I'm not 100% sure. I'm totally honest with you.
Might not be coffee table stuff.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know. much like your video that you did on the Great Hunger, it's a lot different when you write it than when you see it.
Yeah, it's very different.
I know the sculptor is very proud of herself.
Okay, so we have the delay.
Yes.
We can kind of, I think it'll be good to cut into some detail on process. I think people are always curious about process, and this is as good a time as any, I think, to just talk about, because I see behind the curtain a smidge, 5%. And the 5% that I see is a lot of work. I can't imagine the other 95. Trying to get everybody onto the same page and have lore balanced with rules, balanced with sculpture, even down to how the model sits on the table is so important.
Yeah. So you have to remember too, like things like, I'll get into it later, like about the design process, because I'm not the art director, so keep that in mind. But I'm talking just from generalities, what I know. But so to start this off, the first conversation that took place was talking about licensing with Factory Fortress, right? Because what I did was I wrote up an idea of what I wanted to do, submitted it to Factory Fortress. Then they wanted to have further conversations about it, and we went back and forth, and they agreed that we would license a sub faction from them, right? And the one that I was most interested in, and the one they wanted us to do, was the Black Grail. So I mean, from there, I wrote up the lore, and then I wrote the rules that I thought that the faction should have, right? And keep in mind, I mean, November is still pretty early to be doing this in the process of game development in general, right? By the time I started writing the rules, I'd maybe played a dozen games at most, and I mean that's probably even stretching it. So, but I had an idea of how I wanted the faction to play, right? So from there, right, we kept it going and kept the discussions going, and then we ended up talking to Mike and Thomas and James and Jamie, of course, the business guy, who was my original contact. and we started talking about the rules and refining everything. Mike is a fantastic artist, and more importantly, there's a theme that goes along with French Crusade. It looks a certain way, and it's important to him, and it's important to us, and it's important to the whole French Crusade team, that our style reflects their style, right? Yeah. Reflects their world, right? So Peter Adams is the CEO, but he's also the art director. He was introduced to Mike, and he's worked very closely with Mike and our sculptors to perfect what the final vision that our team has and their team has. So he's been working with Mike nonstop. I think they talked briefly before Adepticon, and then we had a lot of meetings at Adepticon between the two of us. They got to know each other. They've been having weekly meetings since then on progress. And so what we do is we sculpt a model. Well, first we have our concept art. So we have the concept for the model. We present that to Mike. Mike has his notes and drawovers and that sort of thing. We send to our sculptors. Our sculptors do their work. And then he does a further critique of our work in progress and does drawovers and all that sort of stuff. And then we kind of refine the model so it matches both of our visions. That in itself takes a lot of time, right? Because when you have more than one cook, like when we're doing our World of Reclamation stuff, our D&D stuff, Peter just deals with sculptors, and Peter and I have already spoken. We have a clear image of what we want, right? And we pass that on to the sculptors, and we let them put their vision to, into the model. There's very rarely a lot of back and forth. I mean, there's back and forth between the sculptors and Peter, but I don't have any sort of involvement in that until the final model, right? Unless they deviates greatly from what we spoke about. With this, there's a lot of people involved who have a lot at say in this sort of project, and so with Peter and Mike going back and forth, that adds a lot of the sculpting time, right?
Yeah.
So in addition to that, I mean, then there's Thomas and I, right? So we're doing the rules. Factory Force, they're super busy right now, and they have a ton of work ahead of them, and they're experiencing unprecedented success with their product right now. So the time that they have to give us is, they have to look after their projects first before they can look after our projects, right? And I'm very sympathetic to that because I'm the same way. Creature Caster we're not just a Trench Crusade model company, right? We are, we have our own projects that we have Judgment, we have an undisclosed project with another company that I can't talk about. We have our World of Reclamation D&D stuff, mm-hmm. right? And then this is added on top of it. So, we have to look after our stuff. They have to look after their stuff. So somehow in between there, we have to find time to work together and communicate and get this stuff done. And it's just taken much longer than we originally anticipated. I think even Factory Fortress realizes that, this is taking longer than anticipated. But a big part of that is because we're all very passionate about what we're doing, and we want to make this the best Trench Crusade supplement that we can. Yeah. Right?
I think people might also be a little surprised by how much of a democracy Factory Fortress is.
Yes.
It's not a case of Mike is wandering around telling everybody what to do and the way that things are going to be. He's working with people that he really likes, and he trusts their vision, and he wants to hear everybody talking about this stuff. Like, I was talking to Mike about something literally last week, something that I think a lot of people would consider to be pretty minor in the world and development of Trench Crusade, and we were like, yeah, maybe. And Mike, who you'd think is the one person who can turn around and go, look, we'll do it, turns around and says, I'm going to go talk to the team and we'll decide. Like, it's incredibly refreshing to they seem to have a land. Normally designed by committee is death, but I think Mike is like really trusting in people and the vision, and he wants everybody to feel creatively fulfilled and happy with what they're doing. And it sounds like that's extending out to you all as well.
Yeah, we're the exact same way. We're all a very collaborative company. So I mean, and Creature Caster is not a big company. People seem to think that Creature Caster is this. We have a ton of staff and all that stuff. I mean, there's me, there's Peter, there's Simon, and then we have a part-time concept artist, Alex Boca, who, he's a full-time job at Larian Studios as their concept designer. So he's, he's a busy dude. And then we have 3 full-time staff as sculptors, and then we have 1 part-time sculptor who works for 2 weeks out of the month. So I mean, we're not a big company, and we're very much designed by committee. We all have our say. We meet every day, and we discuss what we want to see in projects, and we all have our own say. To the point where, like, even Peter's the art director, right? I'm doing the writing and the rule stuff, but Peter still meets with me and Thomas, right? Just to get an idea of what we're doing and what we're talking about, and he has opinions. And Peter's only played 2 or 3 games of Trench Crusade, but he has opinions, and he's had some very good insights into what our faction should do and look like, right? And the same thing goes with the sculpting and the artwork. If I have something to say or have opinions, or I even want something, right? We all work hard to make it happen, right? And I think that's the benefit of being a small team, much like how Factory Fortress is, they're a small team as well, and it gets a lot harder when you have, if you look at something like Games Workshop, where they have so many employees, right? And even then, I think people would be surprised how many employees Games Workshop actually has versus how many people think they have. I used to work for Corvus Belli, and again, it's not a huge team. There's not a ton of people working for these companies. So, but once you start getting into having 20 employees to work with, the design by democracy kind of would be a bit of a detriment, right? But as a small team, we're flexible enough that we can do that kind of stuff, and it's fantastic. It's my favorite way to work.
You'll also, this is kind of going off topic, but hey, we do that around here. There's also, when you work with people for a long time, especially in a creative field, you develop a kind of a shorthand with each other, and you just innately start to understand the other person's kind of sources and inspirations and drives and ambitions, and you'll do half their work for them whilst they're talking to you, because that's just how well you know them.
Yeah, I mean, it's I've worked for Creature Cast now for, I think it's almost 4 years, and we have some pretty sometimes there's some misunderstandings, but for the most part, we're very we all kind of know, and I kind of know what Peter wants in terms of writing, and he trusts me that I'm going to write what he likes, and I'm not going to go too off key. And the same thing goes with sculpting, right? Where he kind of knows what I'm looking for, and he has I'm pretty easy to please. I mean, you throw some guts on something, I'm pretty happy, but in the end, we all work well trying to make sure that we're honoring all of our visions. So the rules, they go to, so I have the rules. I send it to Thomas. Thomas is the playtesters. Playtesters send it back to me. We're on revision number 3.1, and every time we make a big revision, it's when the rule set drastically changes, and we need to do a larger revamp. And we're on 3.1, so that means that now we've had 2 iterations of the Great Hunger, and 3 iterations of the Great Hunger, and the first 2 are no longer being considered as a possibility. So we're moving in that direction, but by the time this process is done, and I'm seeing how long this is taking, we're going to be on version 5 by the time we're ready to go to market.
Yeah.
It's the nature of the beast, but I would rather have you guys have a final product that is representative of what we want and has gained acceptance from the community, the playtesting community, and also has Thomas's stamp of approval. And I mean, and the difference, I think, so you have to remember, Thomas is the rules guy for Trench Crusade and the writer, but he's the rules guy, right? And it's his game. I'm playing in his playground. So I'm not Thomas, but I want Thomas to give his thumbs up, and when he has confidence in a product, hopefully that confidence extends out to the rest of the community.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is an official sub-faction. It's not a fanfic or fan-made faction. It is an official Trench Crusade faction that is canon in the lore, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Like, this is a really important part of something that's hopefully going to exist for a very long time.
That's it, right? I mean, if you look at Games Workshop and Warhammer, right? They've been around for 45 years now, I think. And, I mean, the way that Trench Crusade is right now and how big it is, right? I mean, this game could really be a large part of the game, have a much larger role in the future of wargaming. And, if you look at it like if you're doing it, it's like doing a canon chapter of Space Marines, right? Or a chapter of Chaos Marines or whatever, right? I mean, this stuff could what we do here could last longer than I'm actually around. In reality, I'm 45 years old, right? I mean, if this game sticks around for another 40, 45 years, I'm probably not going to be around to see it, right? Yeah. But people still might be playing the Great Hunger. It's important to me that the lore is established and, it looks good from the onset.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. And I think it's something that people will be very understanding of, because people are getting more and more clued into design process and how difficult it is to be creative, because there's so many people now, I think, doing like tremendous work out there. You can see all the efforts they're putting in on YouTube. You can see all the efforts they're putting in on Instagram. You see them working away and iterating on their own projects, and it taking a very long time. And that's them with complete and total control of what it is that they're doing. You and I could sit down and we could poop out a faction for Trench Crusade without any consideration for anything in a day.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
It would be awful. It would.
Well, I think you can have more faith in us than that.
It would have. Well, okay. What I mean is, it would have so many rough edges, and so much stuff would come back to haunt us 7 months from now that we just hadn't thought about.
Oh, well, I'll use a great example. I could bring an example actually from the first edition, because those rules aren't going to be valid anymore anyway. But there was a type of armor called the Desiccated Husk, right? And it counted as standard armor, and it didn't allow knockdown, right? There was an item called Essence of Madagot, right? Where the person, where an elite model could consume dried uterus of the Madagot hag and gain her powers temporarily. And one of the powers of the Madagot hag was she was basically invincible until she was knocked down, right? So you could give this desiccated husk to a Lord of Tumors, right? And also give him Essence of Madagot, right? He eats the Essence of Madagot, consumes the Essence of Madagot, and is in the desiccated husk, wades into combat, and you can't kill him.
Yeah.
Right? That's brutal. You know what I mean? And in terms of how it worked, it made sense independently. The desiccated husk was cool armor, but it wasn't that crazy. The Essence of Madagot was a cool item. But when you combine the two of them, shit got crazy, right? And I didn't see it necessarily. Peter and Thomas didn't necessarily see it, but the playtesters caught on to that right away.
Oh yeah, I know some of those playtesters. They'll know the cheese before they even read the rules somehow. They're little freaks.
I mean, I'm not I'm not a sweaty player at all. I'm very casual. I have a feeling you're probably the same way. But I'm sure that there are people out there that are like, yeah, I definitely want to do this, and then I have an unkillable, Lord of Tumors.
Yeah,
I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
And they'll see it straight away.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things that go into this, and it's not just a matter of you could have rules that sound cool, but when push to shove, I want these rules to be able to be played in tournament play. I want to be used in campaign play, and I don't want people to feel that this faction or sub-faction is any more or less powerful than taking any other option.
Yes, we spoke about that before, where when you're selling someone a faction, you don't want it to be underpowered, you don't want it to be overpowered, you want them to feel like they're buying a fair experience.
Yes, exactly. So that's what we're doing, and I mean it's a time-consuming process. That's really the brass tacks of it. So I mean it's but and then there's even so the process even to after all this is done. So after we have the finalized rules and we have the models sculpted and we're ready to go, we're still not ready to go yet, right? Because I still have to write a book, right? And I'm not putting out a two-page little supplement for the thing. I'm trying to get like a 40 to 60 page booklet, right? That is going to have lore in it. It's going to have scenarios. It's going to have artwork, like the whole dealio, right? I don't particularly like to, I don't particularly like to half-ass anything when it comes to that sort of stuff, because the most important aspect to me personally is the lore, right?
Yeah.
So having the, having that booklet's important. I have to write that. I have to lay that out. I mean, a lot of it's written already. The lore's written. There's extra stuff. I know you've seen it, right? Where I have extra like short stories or whatever in there. But I also want to get short stories from like stuff from you, stuff from other people who want to be involved in this, who want to put it into the book as well.
Yeah.
And even so I think the biggest thing when it came down to making the decision to delay the product was we still have some models to finish, right? All the models will be finished, or we're scheduled to be finished sculpted, right? And finished and sculpted by June 7th. We're looking to launch June 10th, right? That leaves, we still have to get these models supported after we get the models, right? Because we don't support them ourselves. We have a guy who does support separately. So he would have to support those models. And then I need to get those models painted, right? And people don't even, like, another thing people don't understand too is like renders are part of the selling process, the marketing process. And getting renders takes a day, right? It's usually about a day of work for one of our artists to make the renders. And when they're making renders, they're not sculpting models.
Yeah.
Right? And as mentioned, we not only do we sculpt models for Trench Crusade, we're sculpting models for another company, other companies, right? And we're also sculpting models for ourselves.
Yeah.
Right? So, and we have a tribe, and our tribe is also very important to us. It's a very large portion of our income. And that needs to be delivered at the start of the month, right? And those people, I mean, they're fantastic. They're amazing. They're amazing people. I've never actually had any bad experiences with any of our customers. But at the same time, there's an unspoken contract between us that I've promised you models at the start of the month. I need to get you models at the start of the month.
Yeah.
And those models also need to be rendered. They need to be supported, right? So in just looking at the timeline, the earliest, even the earliest I could potentially consider putting this out if we get the final models on the 7th. And I mean, again, that's barring no circumstances. So that's assuming models don't get corrupted, assuming that there's no changes that need to be done to these models, right? If I get them on the 7th and I get them supported, that takes about a week to get them supported. So, we're already at the 14th of June. And then I would need them to get painted, right? Because I definitely want to showcase painted models in the crowdfunding, right? So I have to get those painted. The models getting painted, I mean, if I want a good paint job, and I have some really good artists lined up to paint. We have one artist that's sort of on staff. He's our studio artist. His name is Jason Zhao. And he's a phenomenal painter, but it takes him time to paint.
Yeah.
I have, and I have like Don Cerritos, Angel Giraldez, like all these big name painters that want to paint these models for display. I still have to get them models. I still have to get them to paint it. To put together the most polished package that I possibly could, we'd be hitting the end of August, right?
Yeah.
Minimum. That's best case scenario, right? And so the thing with Factory Fortress is they are also doing licensing with other companies. They're not just licensed with Creature Caster, right? And part of that license is they do a lot of the marketing for the product that's going to be released that quarter as well for them. And by taking that delay into consideration, I'm sorry, it would be taking that delay into consideration, that'd be infringing on the Q3 release of for Trench Crusade, and that's not fair to them.
Yeah.
Right? Because they're trying to launch their stuff because they've been working just as hard as I have with Factory Fortress. I'd be infringing on theirs. We got very lucky in the sense that someone who was scheduled for Q4 had to drop their project. So we're getting slotted into Q4, which means that we can launch the start of October.
Yeah.
So
I definitely don't think people realize how much stuff is on the bubble constantly.
Yes. Absolutely.
The easiest way to think about Trench Crusade, especially at this point in time, is board games, war games, they're live service. You know, they're not like this is a monopoly. Like, it's not one and done here. It's a consistent development process and cycle that involves an awful lot of human beings. And when you have a lot of human beings involved in something, shit's gonna slide. That's just the way it's gonna be. That's creating.
Yeah. So I mean, that's just it, right? I mean, there's a lot of people involved in this that want to make this work, and to make it the best product that we possibly can and the most polished product. October seems to be the best time to do it, and I mean, and we're going to be, we're going to be releasing a good product. I would much rather delay the product and deliver it to you on time when I say I'm going to deliver it, than rush to market with a product and then not be able to deliver it when I tell you it's going to be delivered. I'm a big believer in being a person of my word, and when I say something's going to be delivered at a certain time, you can bet your ass it's going to be delivered at that time, and I will make sure it happens.
Yep.
And that's another thing too. When people talk about delivery, I just did a backer kit for our D&D stuff last. I think it was last October. It was around last fall. And my original thing was, because everything was done when I went to market, or when I went to backer kit. The book was done, the models were done, the adventures were done, everything was ready to go. We ran the campaign for a month, and I said, okay, I'm going to get this stuff to you guys as soon as I possibly can. Let's hope for 2 weeks after the project ends, right? And then I found out when the project ends, you'd be surprised how many people's credit cards bounce when it comes time to pay for what they bought.
I would not be surprised. Right? As someone with a credit card, let me tell you.
I was very surprised, right? That how many credit cards bounced, and I was very concerned. I went to BackerKit and I'm like, what the hell, man? I'm like, this doesn't look good. And they said, no, this is normal. We just have to give them some time to make sure they get their affairs in order, and then they'll try their credit card again every few days, right? Until it bounces through. So it was about 2 weeks until we got roughly 95% of the people paid up, right? But they won't let you send out the pledge manager until a certain amount of percentage is paid up, right? So I'm sitting on this pledge manager, and I'm not sure if you've ever created a pledge manager. No. Okay. It's a goddamn nightmare. It's a goddamn nightmare to make a pledge manager, because you have to have every option in there. It's basically like setting up an online store, right? But it's just a one-time online store. It's a lot of work. So I did the pledge manager. At least I was doing it while I was waiting for payment. But then I found out I can't send the product until something like 80% of the pledge managers have been fulfilled, right? Like, I have to close the pledge manager, and then I can fulfill the product, right? And as a result, I ended up fulfilling this like a month and a half after the project ended, right? And that's just mainly because of paperwork. That had nothing to do with the product actually not being done or being done. Like, there was no, I think I did like a little bit of editing in the book while I was waiting, but it wasn't like extensive. It was just, I moved something. I'm not sure if you've ever done layout and design, but
I've been messing around with InDesign.
Yeah, so I think what happened was at the start of sometimes I'm not the brightest person, and I made the core rule book, instead of making it into like manageable chapters, I made it one long friggin' document, right? Like, just one long consistent text, right? And I think at the start of the book, I adjusted some of the text for one of the races, and it was off by a few words, and it made widows on every paragraph going down through the whole book. So I had to go through the whole book and remove the widow, right, from everything. It was just a nightmare. I mean, it doesn't sound like a nightmare, but it took me a good 3 or 4 hours to like get the book back up into publishable format. Anyway, so that's kind of my story, right? Where like this stuff just doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen through magic. I wish I could magic this into existence, but the truth of the matter is, there's a lot of work that goes into this, and the work doesn't stop until you get the product, right? So again, is it regrettable that we have to delay until October? Yeah, I mean, it is. But in the end, you're going to get a much nicer product. You're going to see painted models. You're going to be able to get extra pieces that we want to put on that we may not necessarily have time to do if we rushed it. all in all, and you'll get a complete rule book with lore, with all sorts of cool stuff in there that'll be nice and designed. I mean, it probably won't be a printed book; it'll be a digital book. But I mean, I think in this day and age, I think a digital book is just fine.
Yeah, exactly. Digital books are good. Quiet cat. So, as regards the lore, that's what we've seen the most of. Let's say at this point in time, will there be changes to the lore? Will that lore be continuing forward as is?
So I mean, the lore is largely what we discussed prior. There's been a few changes. So one of them is a rules mechanic change. So and I can kind of get into the rules a little later. But so as we've spoken before, the Grigori Gula has a spark of divinity in it, right? And we've decided, because just the way that the rules have panned out, is it's having Lord of Tumors, the Great Maw, in our force, and having a Grigori Gula in our force is a pretty strong combo. It's caused some issues, so we've decided that you can either have Grigori Gulas, yes, plural, Grigori Gulas in our army, in our warband, or you can take a Lord of Tumors, right? And the lore reason for that is because the Lord of Tumors is so corrupt and so filled with hate for creation that they can't abide by the divine spark that lurks within the Grigori Gula, no matter how corrupted it is, right? So they feel very uncomfortable and they won't work with the Grigori Gula. So, which I think is pretty cool.
I'm not into divine sparks. What can I say? It's just who I am.
Yeah. Have things changed a little bit, I guess. I mean, there was an original concept for the faction that it was, so like the one thing I love about Trench Crusade is the head canon, right? Thomas and Mike are very careful when they're writing to not reveal too much.
Yeah,
right.
Tell me about it.
And that's great though. I mean, because that lets you have that. Like I'll bring up this example again, right? Of like the Dawn of the Dead series, or the Night of the Living Dead series, right? Like Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. And I'm a huge fan of this, right? Where you never actually find out why there's a zombie apocalypse, right? It's there. It doesn't matter. The fact that it doesn't matter how you can speculate, and the characters in the series, they do speculate why the dead are back to life. But in the end, it doesn't matter why they're back to life. All that matters is that they are back to life and they're eating people.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
They riff on that perfectly in Shaun of the Dead as well.
Exactly, right. Exactly. Shaun of the Dead is a great example. Or
like through the TV and it's giving it absolute bullshit theory. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, well, that's it, right? I mean, even like that one thing in Dawn of the Dead where he's like, when hell is full, the dead will walk the earth.
Yeah.
Right. It has that, it has that same sort of feel, like maybe hell is full, and that's why the dead are here. Who knows, right? Or you look at like The Thing, right, where it never explains where the thing came from or why the thing was there, or Evil Dead, right, where and they don't. There's no like background canon on what the Sumerians were doing with the Deadites and all this stuff, or where they come from. It's more focused on the fact that they are there and they're scary as hell, and you have to deal with the fact that they are there.
Yes.
So the original concept was that like New Antioch created the Great Hunger, and that's what happened. That idea was scrapped a long time ago. We now made the focus more on Beelzebub, and how Beelzebub needed to hold land after he's done conquering, and this is the best way for him to do that.
Yeah.
Now that being said, who knows? Maybe New Antioch did have a hand in creating the Great Hunger, right? Maybe Beelzebub forced their hand to do something they shouldn't have done, and now that's why the Great Hunger's here.
Yeah, wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah. So I mean, there's and there will be more changes to the lore as we go. I mean, the lore I feel is in a pretty solid place. I've had good conversations with Thomas and Mike, and they're both very happy with the lore is right now. So we're just kind of, but I mean, as I expand and grow the book and have more lore in there, I'm sure there's going to be more things that change, more things that we're gonna brainstorm or come up with. But as it stands, I mean, the booklet right now I think is 22 pages, and that's mainly just rules and descriptions of the different models and that sort of thing. Once I start adding artwork to that, once I start adding like short stories and little snippets and that sort of thing, I think we're easily going to make 40 pages.
Nice.
So which would be super cool to have too, right?
Yeah, so, definitely. Like I've always loved that element of wargaming, like even gaming in general, to be honest. Those little things that build on the story in your mind, and they just fuel your imagination when it comes to, like, why is your particular warband doing what it's doing, and what have they experienced, and all the rest of it. It's, for me, it's the best part. Those little world building elements that make up these things and make up rulebooks. Like, I constantly find myself going back to old rulebooks that I have and just reading those short stories over and over and over again over the years. I've probably read the short stories in the Wartime books 2 or 3 times a year, every year for my entire life. Yep. Like, well, not my entire life. Obviously, I wasn't born the day it came out, but probably for 20, 25 years. Yeah, probably. Actually, yeah, it's probably been about 25 years. So that's wild. We're old, man. We're old as shit. But like that, I think that's a wonderful element of the creative process that everybody's going through here. Like, how long will it live in the imaginations of the people that read it? Like, that alone is worthy of care. Yep. I agree with you absolutely. It's and the nice thing too about having this delay is that I get to tease more lore to the wargaming community, because I will tell you, there's nothing more fun than gaslighting gamers, like, about lore. Yes. There's nothing more fun than that. I try to put tidbits in each one of my ads that I put out that people have found, and it's amazing to me how creative some of these people are in finding these things, because I would never think of taking an ad and like reversing the colors and try to find hidden messages in the ads. Yeah. That's wild. I just wild. Like straight up lying to people about lore. Like, I go pretty ham at it sometimes. I've toned it down a good bit, but like, there's some stuff out there that it ain't canon, but goddamn, enough people believe it happened, and I'm like, maybe it's just propaganda. And they're like, how would you know? Like, because I'm the one who made it up. Sorry about that. Like, a lot of people are pretty convinced that the Iron Sultanate actually killed off a hegemon, which I put out into the world, because in my mind, there's no way in hell they're not going to claim they have. That's true. They're not going to let the goddamn New Antioch claim 2 kills against the hegemon. It's just not going to happen. So they're just going to say, yeah, we took one out too. They're like, what are you going to do? Satellite photos? I don't think so. Yeah. So yeah, that's what we should do. That's why it's fun. What we should do is we should do a podcast and take on the role of 2 trench pilgrims, and just speculate on what's happening and make things up. But one of them could be like Alex Jones, wearing like one of you saw the meme I made with Alex Jones with the iron capriot on his head, and he's like they're putting it in the water. That would actually be really something. We could even modify the sound so it makes it sound like we're inside of these helmets. Yeah, we can be in a little. We can have a little clicky clackety radio sound effect going on. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. God, that would be hilarious. We should probably do that before somebody else does it. Yeah, now we've suggested someone's going to do it. Someone with a much better Alex Jones impression than me. Exactly. Or else they're already doing it. All right. So, with that being said, I do have some works in progress I can share with you guys. That way, at least, this isn't for nothing. You get to see some of the stuff we're working on. I have some models that you guys probably haven't seen yet. But the best part is I'm going to be doing this in Chitubox. So I will actually spin around and give you guys a full view of each one of the models that I'm going to showcase here. Now, I can't showcase all the models because they're not done. But I have a good range of models that are finished that I can give you guys a view about. All right, perfect. So here's my Chitubox. So the first one I'm going to bring up is, because I know a lot of people have seen this model already, but this is our Great Maw. This guy is
as you can see, and a lot of people have seen this model already, or the basics of this model. We've done a few modifications since you've seen the painted one.
Yeah.
But one thing is his feet have changed. See all these toes on here?
Feet.
Weird ass toes. So he's got the sort of the double claw hoof thing here. One major thing we added here was the maggots in the gun. That was Mike's big thing we wanted was maggots in the eating away at the wood.
Nice.
On there. But I mean, a cool part of this mod too is like the modified gas mask to be like a eating item, right? So I mean, this tube here, like he's got his head in here, this is the mask, right? But then this big tube here goes into the back, and inside of here is blended people, right? And he's just so lore wise, the reason he's doing this is because as part of the lore, you have the victims of the Great Hunger. The more they don't eat, the more they devolve into the virus's final form, which is known as the Prowler, which kind of takes the place of the Grail Hounds in our faction.
Yeah.
So what the Prowlers are just people who, like, the virus is completely taken over. They fall down on all fours. Their chest bursts open and becomes a giant mouth. Their organs become tentacles, and all they do is try to grab things with these tentacles and pull them into the mouth to eat, right? So one way to stave off the de-evolution, I guess, of the advancement of this virus is to keep on consuming. And the more powerful you are, such as like a Great Maw, because they have a great deal of the virus inside of them, is they have to constantly be feeding, otherwise they constantly start devolving. Or they devolve faster, right? So as a part of the lore here is these vats full of people are just mushed up human remains that they can constantly suck on while they're fighting, so they don't have to stop and eat, and they can just keep on fighting.
Nice. Convenient. So, it's basically a big gulp.
Yeah, it's like a big gulp of people. That's kind of what it is. Now, I would like to do some alternate heads for this model as part of the delay, and I have some really cool alternate heads I can't show yet, but they're all pretty boss looking. There's one that's really creepy that I really love. Also, I will mention too, because I can talk about rules in this interview, this is actually a new weapon available only to the Lord of Tumors called the Black Spot Rifle, and it is a giant bolt action rifle that inflicts infection markers and also works as a piece that allows Grail Thralls and Flyth Thraws to move forward when it's shot.
Oh, so interesting.
Well, and I'll get into the rule stuff a little later, but so this is this guy here, just so you can get a full 360 of this guy. Some of the cool details, like his spine showing off his back or coming out of his back, which is kind of cool in his rib cage. So that is the Lord of Tumors. So I'm going to zoom out here and move him off to the side because we've already seen him. I'll pop him there. And the next model I'm going to bring out is the newest one that you guys have seen, which is one of the Plague Wardens. This guy here is a Plague Warden. He is so our Plague Wardens, instead of a tick, they are infested with parasitic worms, and these worms marionette the body and do the bidding of Beelzebub. So this one here, there's 3 different variants. This is the one with the Corruption Belcher. So one thing I will say about the Great Hunger is it does not actually have access to a Corruption Belcher.
Yeah.
It also doesn't have access to a Viscera Cannon. Our faction does have access to a limited range of ranged weapons, but for the most part, they will not be available. The reason we're releasing this model with the Corruption Belcher is it can be used for other in your own vanilla Black Grail armies.
Yeah,
because we're releasing models that we're releasing models that aren't even part of our faction, but are part of the Black Grail, just so you have a complete force. So if you want to play the Great Hunger, you can play the Great Hunger. If you want to play vanilla Black Grail or Dirge, you can use these models as well.
You'll have a unified aesthetic on the table.
Absolutely. That's kind of what we're going for. So, a cool aspect of this too is that, he's kind of screaming, but his head's being pulled off and only being held in place by this parasitic worm that
Yeah,
is,
that's I think one of my favorite
yeah,
elements of any of the sculpts. I think it's just so malign.
it is. Yeah, it's pretty grotesque. I'm looking forward to painting this one. But yeah, so this is what we got with this. Now I'm going to move him off to the side. Come on. All right, move all this to the side here. All right, so the next one is one you haven't seen yet, and that is this Flyth Thrawl. So these are our Flyth Thraws.
That's sick.
So again with the parasitic worms, right? It's got the parasitic worms inside of it. It's got these nice big grasping mutated hands. So you can see how he's like the claw coming out, and he has like a normal hand as well that's coming out of there. So these guys are controlled by giant flies, right? And as you can see here, so this is that goofy fly that's on top, but that's actually not the fly's mouth. That's actually a human head that's being enveloped by the fly. And I'm trying to get a good angle on that without getting too weird. But can I move that way?
Yeah, you can kind of see the jaw.
Yeah, you can see the jaw. So but yeah, if I zoom in, I'm a little off. Ah, crap. But anyway, you can see you can see the human jaw here. There we go. I'm in the right spot now. You have the human jaw, right? And then you have the fly's head that's kind of enveloping his head, and he's controlling the body. So now if you go to the back here, you can see he's the tail and all. That's just part of the fly's body.
Yeah.
So, and I will mention too that all of our models come with these bases, these sculpted bases.
Nice.
So they come right in there, and you can even see. There's little pegs where the models go, so you won't have any issues with fitting the model onto the base. So, and once that's secured to the base, it ain't coming off. So, also fun fact, which I'll talk about in the rules section a little more, is our thralls are on 32 millimeter bases, not 25 millimeter bases for a reason.
Find out later.
Yeah. When we get to the rules part of this conversation. So then the next ones I want to show are, this guy got moved, is one of the Butcher Knights. So this is Butcher Knight 2. And he's the one with the amalgamated head. And I mean, like if you wanted to, you could actually like blow this guy up in an STL to be like an amalgam if you wanted to.
Yeah.
It kind of has that feel to him. That's one model we don't have access to is the amalgam. We haven't decided whether we're going to do one for the release as a stretch goal, but anyway, so he's got two hand weapons. One of the cooler aspects of this guy is the giant mouth and the shoulder with the teeth.
Yeah,
which is going to be a constant theme in our models is these big broken ass teeth in weird places. But yeah, and then so I can do a 360 on this guy. 60 his back. He's got.
I'm loving the bodies on the shields.
Yeah, he's got the bodies through the thing in the shield. He's got
just a little
body on his shoulder.
There.
Well, I mean, so like the lore behind the Butcher Knights is they're actually like so in the Black Grail, the Plague Knights they're like great warriors of kind of forsaken their purpose, if I'm not wrong, right?
Yeah, they're basically wankers.
Yeah. So yeah. So our Butcher Knights are a little different. What they are thralls or creatures that have consumed so much they've gained so much in size and bulk. Their new purpose now is not only to sustain themselves but to sustain the rest of the warband. So what they do is they capture and kill and drag food back to the Madagot Hag to be fed to her children, right? And of course eating along the way.
Okay.
So that's the first.
I was gonna say they're the responsible dads of the Great Hunger.
Yeah, they're like daddy butchers,
Yeah, like daddy bird just bringing home worms to the nest.
So with that being said, I'll show off the last model, which is the first. Oh God, I'm not good at this. All right, is the other Butcher Knight. So I mean, it's the same base, so I'm not gonna worry about that. But this is the Butcher Knight here. He's got this. He's the one with the weird scraggly head inside of this huge piece of armor that goes over his body. But he's got a cool shield. So one thing you'll notice here is we have the Mark of the Great Maw, which is just sort of an iron wrought shape. It doesn't necessarily have to be a particular shape, but it has the teeth in there, and that's stamped all over the models, right?
Nice.
Much like how the Black Grail has their own Grail stamp on their stuff.
Yeah.
Same idea. So, and this guy's got the shield. I mean, we keep up with the aggressive style, so he's got a spike on his shield, right?
Yeah, I
so
like
everything
the
they have is a
shield
weapon
concept.
Yeah. We want to make sure that everything that these guys have looks aggressive, right? So we have an aggressive looking shield, we got a cleaver, and then on the back we have some more swords. You can see a parasite inside of them. This is a parasitic worm. Yeah, so that's what we got there. So that's a bit of a model preview for you.
Yeah, that's really sick. My vote is definitely that you would do an amalgam sculpt if that was something within your time frame.
Yeah,
I'd be incredibly curious to see what you would do for that.
Yeah, it's a really complicated. That's a really complicated sculpt too. Mainly just because of, of what it is. It's an amalgamation of everything, right?
Yeah.
And so it's it's a very hard model to pull off well because you have multiple arms, you have multiple heads, multiple different parts, right, that you kind of have to squeeze together. But I have faith in our sculptors, and they might be able to do something for sure.
Yeah.
So I guess that kind of brings us back into talking about the rules.
Yeah, back to the rules. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be really interested in this part because they're very hungry for a concept of how they might play.
Yeah, and the gist of the Great Hunger is that they are a horde of creatures that are looking to consume, right? You aren't going to want to take your elite, like a bunch of elites in this army. This is really about your horde, like having a horde army, right? And from what I've read too on the Discord, right, that's really what a lot of Black Grail people want.
Yes, they want a true horde.
Yeah, and they want to field thralls, but they want to field thralls that are at least effective, right, in their abilities. And I think we've accomplished that with this. So one of the I've already talked about the Prowlers and their grasping maws, right? Now, one thing I'd like to mention is in our faction, the grasping maw, which is the intestines that are coming out of the models, that is actually available to all models, right? Okay. And what it does is it allows them to actually shoot out tendrils and grab onto a model and pull them forward, right? So even if you're trying to run away, if you disengage and try to run away from these guys, they're just going to grab you and pull you back into close combat, right? Which is a horrifying concept when you think about it, right?
Yeah, so you better commit. If you're going to fight something, commit to it.
Yeah, and they're going to commit fighting you because that's where they excel is in close combat. So one thing I want to talk about is something called the engorged rule. So there's two models in our faction that have the rule called engorged, which means that they're larger than they normally would be, and that's because they've been feasting on remains. And so what that does actually is gives you an additional bite attack, right? As if it's an offhand weapon, right? Okay. That inflicts infection markers. So what it does is, if you have like what's it called, like a Butcher Knight, and he's got a great sword in one hand and a shield in the other hand, right? He can still make that second attack, right, with that bite as an offhand attack, right? So that comes with its own set of point costs, right? So our models that are engorged are more expensive than that, but you think so every Grail Thrall, every Grail Thrall that you have has the potential of having two attacks, right? And one of those inflicting infection markers, right? Now, another thing is the equipment restrictions. And keep in mind, this is subject to change. So this is edition 3.1 of the rule set.
Yeah.
There are major equipment restrictions on this faction, right? being that they can't take the Beelzebub's axe, they can't take the Black Rail shields, they can't take troop standards, they can't take musical instruments, they can't take compound eye helmets.
Okay.
And they can't take any ranged weapons except for shotguns, putrid shotguns, and the black spot rifle.
Yeah, you mentioned the black spot rifle already. You said that could somehow make things move.
Yeah, so it's what it is you can hit with it, and then you can pick a thrall, and the thrall can move forward as well, right? When that weapon's shot.
Does it have to move forward towards that target?
Yes.
Okay, that's sick.
Yeah. So there's I will say, as of now, with our rule set, we have a rule called Waste No Flesh, and it means that you can't take an amalgam or heralds of Beelzebub in our force. So now, that being said, we are producing heralds of Beelzebub models.
Yeah.
They're just not Black Rail. They're just Black Rail. They're for the Black Rail force, not for the Great Hunger, right? The reason that we don't have those models is because the amalgam is basically a weapons platform, right? It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to have a weapons platform in a faction that's designed to move forward and engage quickly.
Yeah.
Right. So that didn't make sense for us to have, because that's more of a model that like holds position, right? And the Heralds of Beelzebub, because they're mainly shooting, they're mainly ranged combat models, didn't make much sense to have in our faction either.
Yeah.
Right. So, just going through here some of the rules we're going to talk about. Blah 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 blah. We already talked about how they can't. So that's basically it. Now, in terms of equipment, I talked about the black spot rifle and the grasping maws, which are, again, grasping maws are available on every model. So you can put it on a Grigori Gula, you can put it on thralls, you can put it on whatever you want, right? And they'll always have the ability to reach out and grab and pull. So that brings us into the major change to our faction, which I have Thomas's blessing to talk about. I can't get into too much detail about it, right? Is called the Arcana Putrere. And what that is the Madagot Hag and the elites and the Grigori Gula in our faction can cast spells very similar to the same way that Goetic mages cast spells.
Nice.
Right?
That's
so
interesting.
Now it's a whole new spell list. It's not similar to it's not the same spell list. It's a different spell list altogether. And this is part of the reason of why it's taken so much time to get the rules down.
Yeah.
Is because we're actually doing something that is very complicated, right? Goetic magic is one of the most complicated systems in the Trench Crusade universe, and the Arcana Putrere works differently, but very similarly in the way that it uses infection markers instead of blood markers.
Okay.
Right. Now, you know how I mentioned the engorged rule?
Yes.
Right. So the infectious bite that you get with the engorged rule, that also works like a torture instrument, right? Which allows this model to inflict infection markers on friendly models, right? Then the models that have the access to the Arcana Putrere can use those infection markers to power their spells.
Okay.
So imagine, so they kind of imagine like these thralls who are like gnashing and biting or whatever all the time. They're going to bite their friends and create infection markers, and then the Madagot Hag, who is a very powerful spellcaster, she has access to a lot of these spells, can take the infection markers from that thrall and then use them to power her spells.
Nice.
Yeah. So it doesn't have the restriction that, at this point, it does not have the restriction that it can only be the suffering of mortals to power their stuff. She uses infection markers from all sources.
Yeah. Germs are germs, like.
Yeah. So I can't really get into too much detail outside of that, but I will read you the lore from that section.
Yeah.
So it says, many of the creatures within the Great Hunger have access to the Arcana Putrere, powers and spells which are fueled by the very existence of the Black Rail virus. Beelzebub's hatred of all things living manifests itself in weird and horrible ways, and the half-dead hordes have been taught of its use. Speaking the words of power in corrupt Enochian, they invoke the unholy powers of Ekron and warp reality to their will. As these powers require Beelzebub's infernal essence to work, the leaders of the warband need to send their followers forth to spread the putrid disease. So
I like it. It's actually really on theme, I think, for what it is. A, that you're trying to do in general, and B, Beelzebub's entire thing is a kind of a magical disease, for crying out loud.
yeah, well, exactly.
Yeah, so this plays really nicely into that, and it definitely makes them unique and sets the faction apart within the Black Grail.
Very much apart, right? And that's kind of where the playtesting has come in, and why it's taking so long to get these rules right, is because we're doing something very different from what's already available, right? So in the end, it's going to be worth it when you have a spellcasting army that is, powered, that's loyal to Beelzebub instead of the Goetic powers of the court.
Yeah, horde mob casters will be.
Well, a big part of their stuff too is about buffing thralls and bringing thralls forward, right? So it's all about getting in your face real fast and dishing some real damage.
Nice. That sounds really exciting. It will be a lot of fun to learn more, basically, as you get into the proper marketing cycle for the new date.
And I'll have lots of talk. I'll be able to talk about this stuff more as we get closer to the date. It's just right now everything is like the Arcana Putrere is new as of the second iteration of rules, and it's only, I'm not even entirely sure if it's been play tested, if the Arcana has been extensively play tested yet.
Yeah.
Right. I know that there's some abilities in here that are probably going to need to be toned down because they're pretty powerful. But yeah. So, and then another update from that is the Grigori Gula is 0-2, so you can have up to 2 Grigori Gulas in the force.
Nice.
And the Grigori Gulas, again, I want to stress, are extremely fast moving cannons.
Yeah.
Right? Or fly 9. They zoom across the battlefield, and their goal is to inflict as much damage as possible. Right? And I figured, that they aren't the toughest creatures, right? They have their only defense is really their plague ridden flesh, so it's -2 dice. Like all injury rolls made are -2 dice. But if the attack has fire, then the damage goes normally. So I mean, they are in a sense that's fairly tough, but it's not as tough as like an amalgam or even a plague knight, right? I mean, they're limited in their scope and what they can do, and because they're typically the impulse is going to be to just move as fast as you can towards the enemy. Kind of the idea. Now they have a lot of attacks and they can dish out a lot of damage, but in the end, are they going to make it to the enemy lines? They're so far away from the rest of the force that they kind of make themselves a bit of an island unto themselves and make themselves a big target. Which I kind of like though too, because I mean a big strategy in war games with me has always been to, I'll use Infinity as an example because that's one I used to play a lot, where I take a tag, which is a big mechanized, like a big robot, right? And tags aren't super hard to kill in Infinity, right? And a lot of people's instinct when they play Infinity is to try to keep their tags alive, right? By taking cover and stuff.
Yeah.
What I would do is I would just rush my tag forward and I'd move as fast as I can towards the enemy line and force the enemy to deal with that tag.
Yeah.
Because, it had to be dealt with. And I mean, if it made it to the enemy lines, great. If it didn't matter because it gave the opportunity for my other guys to go towards objectives.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
So that's kind of where the Grigori Gula falls into.
Yeah, I talk about that quite a lot actually in my videos where I talk about the tactics of the game. You need to have something on your list that forces the opponent to respond to it. That's essentially...
Yep.
It can't be planned for because it's just capable of going, look, I don't give a shit. I'm just going to stand here. I'm going to eat this guy and you're going to have to fucking do something about it.
Absolutely.
Every list needs that for a turn or two to be to act disruptively. Well,
and it's universal in almost every game. Like I play. I have a group of people I play with on Monday nights. I have a Call of Duty play group. We've been playing together, like not just Call of Duty. We played Titanfall. We played Halo. Like we played video games together for about. We started in 2007, and we still play once a week. And I'm old and not very good at video games. My reflexes aren't great, right? But when we play things like what's that game mode? Domination, when there's the 3 points and you have to claim the 3 points,
Yeah.
right? One of my tactics is, because I'm not that great. I'm not my reflexes aren't great. My aim is not awesome. I'll just equip myself with a light machine gun and I will run towards the enemy and I will just become a major problem in their back end, right?
Yeah.
And they're forced to deal with me, right? And I mean, I'm pretty easy to deal with. I die just as quickly as anyone else, right? But the guy with a light machine gun who has unlimited ammo, right, is going to cause a major problem from you if you don't deal with them, right? And while I'm doing that and making a big distraction to myself, right, because I don't care about my KD, I don't care if I die 100 times, right?
Yeah.
While I'm doing that, they're taking objectives, right? And that's kind of how it's a strategy I think in almost any tabletop game, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And I don't think Trench Crusade's any different. So, so that's the rules I'm allowed to talk about for now. Hopefully I didn't go into too much detail and then, people see this and start talking about it and I start getting some heat. But I think with the delay, I think it's the least I can do for you guys is to give you an idea of what we're working on.
Yeah, and why.
Yeah, and I have one more major announcement to make in regards to what Creaturecaster is doing.
Okay.
Is in July, we are going to be launching our own Trench Crusade tribe called the Creature Crusade.
Nice.
And every month we're going to be releasing some Trench Crusade themed models. They're going to be existing models. We're not doing anything new. We're not doing new factions, new rules, whatever. We're just going to be releasing alternate models for existing units in Trench Crusade.
Nice.
With our own spin on it, and we're going to put some lore out there and just have fun with it. It's going to cost $7 to join for the month. And what I can do with that $7 is I can promise you one large model, two medium-sized models, or a few small models.
Okay.
Every month. And the first month is going to actually be, one thing I should have mentioned, I forgot. So we've redone the Grigori Gula, the old sculpt. I'm not sure if you remember the old sculpt. I have one on my desk here. This was the old sculpt of the model.
Yeah.
Right? And people seem to really like it, but it just didn't really fit the Grigori Gula theme that was kind of developing. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to repurpose this guy and turn him into a alternate praetor for the first month.
Interesting.
And the first month is free. All you have to do is sign up. So if you sign up, there's no cost the first month. You get that model for free. And then and I'll make sure I announce in particular that we're going to be what models are coming the next month. And you can make your decision if you want to keep on subscribing.
Okay.
But for $7 a month.
Are you going to do sub-factions? Are you going to do models of the sub-factions? Because some of the sub-factions don't have models yet, and people are desperate for them.
Absolutely. That's going to be our first target. Right?
Okay, sick.
Hitting, I had the idea, this is this could be a really good praetor of, for one, which one of the court? There's Envy. What's the other ones? There's Envy,
Lust,
Sloth.
I think
maybe it was Sloth.
Be good. Yeah, I think he'd be good for Sloth because he's kind of emaciated, he doesn't move much. There's not much muscle growth happening.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of thinking. And but we're gonna repurpose him. He's gonna have a sword. He's gonna have some armor on him. So he'll look more like a praetor. But yeah, that's gonna be our first release. That'll be free for everyone. And then the next month we're looking at possibly doing a something that looks something maybe a Goetic Warlock or models that may not necessarily have good options in the game, right?
Yeah.
We definitely won't. Now, I'm going to keep in mind, this is unofficial, right? This is not official Trench Crusade models. They will be releasing their own models in their own time. I have no insight into the release schedule at all, right? But we're going to do some models with our own spin on it and see how things go. But I think people will like the Creature Caster style, I hope.
Yes.
And they'll and we're not just going to do bad guys. It's not just going to be monsters. I want to do a team of 5 yeomen, right? That look like how we feel the yeoman could look, right? And just use them as alternate yeomen in your army.
I think y'all could do the sickest fucking Iron Sultanate.
It's a thought. I mean, like we could do assassins and some alternate azebs as well. Because we have, and I mean, the thing is, we have a huge library of models based on our role-playing stuff that we can modify and put into and make and Frenchify them. To use Mike and Thomas's language.
No,
we can
that's
Frenchify
sick.
them, and
That's actually very exciting. I think I've come around a lot to the concept of mini agnostic games. It was not something that would have been interesting to me when I was younger.
Oh no?
No, like way back in the day, because I didn't have the money to buy minis. I definitely didn't want more choice in what not to buy. But I think there's been a wonderful, in the age of 3D printing, there's been a wonderful kind of demarcation of production where all the options in the world now are what I want. I want people to be able to pick very specifically the thing that appeals to them the most. So this is like really exciting because I think he'll do very unique stuff.
Yeah. Well, I know Peter's mentioned he wants to do like good guys, right? Because we don't have a huge collection of good guys. We have a massive collection of bad guys, right? But we don't have any of the good guy factions. Like even in for whatever tabletop game or role playing game, like I think the River Kings was like the River Kings and the Barristers are about as close as we get.
Yeah.
And the assassins that we have, but I mean I'm not sure if assassins are good guys or not. But
they can be good guys. Depends on who you're killing.
That's true, right? So, but either way, I know in the writing they're bad guys, but, but anyway, so I want to, so I mean, but we can, we'll do things like we'll do stuff like polls as well for the community, like the subscribers. They can always, do polls and see what they want to see, right? And I mean, anyone who knows me knows that I'm very community minded. I like talking to the community. I'm in all the Discord servers. I'm easy to find in the people. What was it last night? Somebody just summoned me at I think it was like 11 o'clock at night. Summoned me into the speculation section at the for the to talk about the Great Hunger.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and they're like, Taylor, can you confirm this? And I go in and I'm like, and I was painting some models at the time, and I was like, and I'm like, sure.
Yeah, why not?
You got my 5 minutes. Yeah. So I mean. I'm more than happy if someone wants to talk to me. I'm always available. I'm always open to PMs if people want to. I mean, so many people have just PM'd me to ask me questions, right? I'm always happy to give people my time of day because the least I can do for the people that are allowing me to do this as my sole source of income.
Yeah, exactly. There's always that, like keeping the audience, the paying consumer on side is a nice touch for companies. A lot of companies seem to forget that shit sometimes.
Yeah, tell me about it. But I mean, I'm more than happy to, chat. I mean, even if I can't reveal something, I'm fine with even chatting. And you know what? I'll even chat with my detractors. There's some people, as you know. I mean, we've had our struggles with delivering Judgment, the game Judgment, which is still a work in progress. And people have called me or messaged me to give me a blast, and I've always been willing to engage with them and talk to them.
Yeah.
And explain to them what the situation is. I mean, I'm not hiding from anybody. It is what it is, and I'm more than happy to be honest with anybody when they chat with me, right?
Yeah. That's all you can do. It might shock you to know some people aren't very fond of me. How fucking dare they?
No.
Cheeky fucks. But no, I mean, it happens. Not, you can't please everybody. And unfortunately, I think one of the things I really had to realize as I grew older was when something happens dozens and hundreds and thousands of times a day, the exponential chance of error is going up. And sometimes you're going to be the person who's caught up in the error. I've tried to be more forgiving and understanding. There's been points, especially with some Kickstarter campaigns that I backed, where I was very annoyed at the way that certain campaigns went, and now I'm trying to just be pretty chill about shit, mainly because you never know. I might end up doing a Kickstarter in the future myself, and I don't want to be a prick about it now.
Well, and I mean, I personally, and maybe I'm naive, but I personally believe that there's very few people in the world that are actually out to just screw anyone, right?
Yeah, I definitely
I
think you're
believe that
naive.
a lot of people, they're not grifters, right? They're not. The circumstances lead to certain things, right? And typically I try to keep in mind when I'm annoyed by something, right, or upset about something, they're probably much harder on themselves than I am on them,
Yeah.
right? Um, you know, in the end, a lot of these people, when it comes, especially with like Kickstarters, right? I mean, there's so many companies out there that just, and it's through no fault of their own. Something happens, and their dream gets dashed. They're like producing this product, probably was their dream, and to have your dream delayed or unable to fulfill and letting people down and stuff, that's crushing for a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? Um, you know, it happens to everybody, right? I mean, nobody's perfect, and we all make mistakes, and it's for me, it's how you address the people that how you address the people that uh, how you engage with them makes all the difference, right? Um, and I mean, I've been part of countless Kickstarters now, and I wouldn't say countless. That's I can probably put a number to it. That's
Yeah, I can
it's not
probably
that
count it.
many, but it's probably under 10. Let's be fair now. Okay, it's probably under 10. Okay, so now when I say countless, now I'm realizing that maybe I just am not good at math. But
Maybe the mental weight of these Kickstarters is just a lot.
maybe I'll be honest with you on that. And most of them are delayed. I mean, most of them are delayed, and most of them are delayed because things out of your control.
Yeah.
It's like even what I was talking about with the earlier, with the backer kit and this D&D stuff. It was delayed, and had nothing to do with me, right? I was ready to go. I was done, but I wasn't aware of the process of how long I would actually need to wait to get that stuff to the backers.
Yeah.
And when you engage people, they're like, typically when people are upset, if you engage them as adults, without being nasty or whatever, and just having a conversation with them, right? Typically they're all right people. Typically they understand that they're just venting and they apologize.
Yeah. The catharsis can be important, and a lot of not to like shoot off on a massive tangent here, but a lot of the times the reason people are mad about things, it's actually nothing really to do with the interaction that you all are having. They've just got other things, like it's a final straw scenario. They've just been dealing with a lot. Life is a lot. So yeah, I guess we'll wrap it there. We are always very dangerously close to just having extremely long conversations during these things.
I remember the last one where some guy said he tuned in for the Great Hunger and stayed for 2 neckbeards.
For just the weirdest conversation. So quick recap, I guess, is delay till October.
Yeah.
Obviously expecting people to feel a little disheartened with that.
Yes, of course.
Which is completely understandable, but the drive behind this is obviously quality and not to sound contradictory to occurrence, but like a good customer experience ultimately is what you're aiming to deliver. Yeah. And in the meantime, Creature Crusade.
Yes, Creature Crusade, which I think will keep people occupied until the Great Hunger comes out. And I mean, it's going to be cool. I think we make some of the nicest models in the industry, and I think that people will really like what we're putting out there.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
And if they don't, that's fine too. I mean, it's this is in this miniature agnostic world, you use what you got to use, right? And
yeah, exactly.
We're just providing you more options.
Alrighty, perfect. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for dropping in and just helping shed some light, basically, on kind of what will be occurring, because I do agree with you. It's definitely better to have some detail out there than just a single post on a Facebook or a Twitter or whatever, and then have lots of people wondering. Folks, if you have any questions or concerns, just literally the Creaturecaster Discord, the Trench Crusade Discord, the comment section that is looming below you right now like a fucking pit of lunacy, depending on who's down there talking. Just ask, and like at the very least, we will get you answers.
Of course, yeah.
That's it.
Well, thanks again. I really appreciate you having me, and let's do it again soon.
Yeah, definitely. It's always really nice to talk to you, and thank you to everybody who tuned in.